And I was very purposeful in trying to come up with who will be the first speaker. And during these challenging times with COVID-19, I really wanted to find someone that I think will help us get centered and remember our gifts and remember our strengths. Today we have a guest, and I am going to bring her on board right now. There we go. Hi, Joanna.
Hello, good to be here.
Oh, the LinkedIn Live show. My very first guest, and I couldn't be more happy and honored that we're doing this together.
Thank you.
And for those of you that don't know, Joanna, please connect with her. She is a Gallup certified strengths coach. And I was very purposeful in trying to come up with who will be the first speaker. And during these challenging times with COVID-19, I really wanted to find someone that I think will help us get centered and remember our gifts and remember our strengths. And I couldn't think of anyone better right now to help ground us and remind us of our strengths than Joanna, a Gallup certified strengths coach. So for those of you, definitely connect with Joanna on LinkedIn. And I'll share briefly, real quick, her LinkedIn profile so you can see. She is, let me give you her background here. Joanna Wiesinger helps leaders and their teams get results and have greater impact by leveraging their strengths. She's a recovering PhD chemist, so super smart, TEDx speaker, published author. And when she's not working, you can catch Joanna reading, traveling, or dreaming of snowy slopes. I guess those slopes aren't in Texas, right, Joanna?
No, they aren't.
Where she can ski with her husband and 3 adult kids. So definitely connect with her and check that out. So today I really wanted to kind of go through a few things. And actually, first of all, give us a little background of what is Clifton Strengths, right? I think a lot of people have done the assessment, but for those that don't know, you know, give us a little brief intro as to what that is.
Sure. So Clifton Strengths Assessment, or Strengthsfinder, as it used to be called, is an online talent assessment, and it identifies an individual's top talents. What they're best at, what they excel at. It stands on 5 decades of research around human potential for excellence and success. And over 21 million people worldwide have taken it. Really kind of the mantra of the Strengthsfinder assessment is invest in your strengths, mitigate your weaknesses, because studies show that our greatest contribution in life will always come from the area of strengths rather than our weaknesses.
Yes, yes. And I still remember the first time we kind of got into a discussion of strengths. Like it just blew my mind, because I think most of our lives, or most of my lives, you know, we're taught to, you know, work on our weaknesses, fix our,
absolutely.
And we're not often reminded of our strengths, and to kind of double down on that and even harness it and grow it even more.
Well, and that's the challenge. You touch on a really good point, Fanny. We have a challenge on our hands, and that is these strengths, these innate talents and strengths are so natural to us, almost as, you know, like breathing. We take them for granted. We don't even notice them. So it takes something like an assessment, Clifton Strengths being one of them, or someone like a coach or another strengths enthusiast like you, Fanny, to kind of hold up the mirror to us and say, hey, maybe you're taking this very thing for granted, but I'm here to say, this is the best part of you that you offer to me. So keep doing that.
For sure. And whether, you know, for those in the audience, whether you've taken the Clifton Strengths or not, right? I think whatever the assessment is, right? Just during the course of this session today, this live session, I just want you to like start to think of your strengths. Right? Even if you haven't taken the assessment, we all have things that we're innately good at and great at and gifted at. And so I want you to think of that and keep that in your mind as Joanna and I go through this discussion.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Fanny. We would love for you to take the assessment because it just catalyzes you to a whole different level of self-awareness, which then you can translate to greater engagement and productivity. At the same time, you can absolutely do what Fanny just said, which is remind yourself of those times when someone else looked at you and said, wait, how did you do that so well? Right? And so right there, it could be your starting point of, oh, maybe that is a strength, something that you do predictably, consistently, with near perfect precision.
For sure. And then, but for those of you that have done the assessment, drop below in the comments, you know, your top strength. Share that with us. Share that with the community. You know, announce it out loud. We should be proud of our strengths and proud of our gifts. Okay, so put that in the comments below as we go through this discussion.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, Joanna, is how can we use our strengths for work right now? You know, and a lot of people have unfortunately lost their jobs during these challenging times. And, you know, how can we leverage StrengthsFinder results for our resume?
Yeah, that is absolutely in all my conversations in the last few weeks, many of my conversations are centered around, resume tweaking, resume writing, thoughts about how to pivot from one area to another. And that's the beautiful, powerful thing behind the strengths movement. And that is that our strengths tell us not what we should be doing next, but rather how we will do whatever we choose to do next. And so Fanny and I kind of banter about the fact that she's a recovering engineer, I'm a recovering chemist, and here we are doing something completely different. and yet doing it still with excellence and joy and ease because our strengths are at work. So back to your question, how can the Clifton Strengths Assessment help us in writing or tweaking, polishing our resume? Well, somehow you need to, as an individual, you need to stand out. Your resume needs to stand out in a pile of often resumes that look very much alike. And what I believe what will make you stand out is words and phrases that are authentic to you, because resumes definitely definitely resumes reflect our accomplishments and our results and our skills. At the same time, we need to somehow convey what it is, how we have stepped into those results and those accomplishments. And so this is where the StrengthsFinder assessment report comes into play. When you take the assessment, you immediately get your results in the form of a report, and that is Fanny's. And you can literally lift the words and the phrases straight from the report and incorporate them into your resume. So I'll give you an example. For me, one of the phrases that strangely enough didn't occur to me to use, but it is right in my report, is a catalyst for change. And that is, once I read that phrase, it felt right. And so yes, I have it in my
catchy too, right? That's a thing that could stand out in a resume or a LinkedIn profile.
Yes, that's it. And I know, Fanny, that you've been very intentional about using the report as a good resource.
And like for me, you know, as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly talking about branding. I'm updating my websites, putting together like profiles. And so sometimes when I'm at loss for words, I just don't know what to write, I go back to these reports. And for those of you that don't know, it's not some like complicated thing, right? And like, I don't work for them, so I'm not like getting a, you know, any kind of like, you know,
not an endorsement, right?
Right? But I just believe so strongly in it. But it's literally $20. It takes how long to go through the questions, Joanna?
45 minutes, maybe.
Yeah.
45 to 50 minutes.
$20. But then you get a report of your top 5 strengths, right? And you literally get like a whole write-up explaining each of your strengths. And it's a great way to just pick out sentences. You see, like I have like little highlights and underlines and all that, because those things spoke to me. And then I literally take those things and put it into my website, my branding, my LinkedIn summary. And for those of you in job search, if you're looking for just unique ways to describe yourself, take that and put it into your resume, right?
Absolutely. And then once you are a step closer to getting that job, you're in an interview, you know that in some you will get asked in some version of the question, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And of course, you don't even have to mention the 34 strengths that come from the Clifton Strengths Assessment. You simply can go back to the phrasing once again. You know, like in Fanny's case, it's all about being that trusted advisor, valuing relationships, being authentic, being genuine, because her strengths align themselves with those values. And so, you know, sitting across from someone and offering it to them, I think is so powerful.
Yeah, even interviews, right? How many of you have gone through an interview and somebody says, tell me about one of your strengths and what are your weaknesses? This is a great way to answer that question in a more unique way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, for those of you, I saw a question, how do we find or take it? Michelle Jones asked that. Here's the website. And again, it's only $20 and you get your top 5 strengths. Okay? And, you know, another thing I wanted to ask you is, it's been stressful, right? It's been, we're suddenly thrown, like our whole schedules are suddenly thrown out of whack because we're working from home. And again, like those are just, you know, challenges. There are a lot of people that have much, much more difficult challenges. And, you know, our thoughts go out to them. And but for those of us that are doing the juggling of work from home and the kids at home because they're not in school, so we're stressed, right? We're having to adjust to this new environment. Is there any advice you have for folks on how to leverage their strengths for home life?
Yeah, I think we absolutely need to pay attention and be talking about it. And I'm simply offering one point of view. To your point, I've spent a lot of time just even yesterday in one-on-one conversations with leaders from different industries about what their work-life balance looks like these days. And the common theme was emotional overwhelm, anxiety about the future, stress of not knowing what's next. It's difficult to be a leader and lead a team, whether at home or at work, when you don't know what the future looks like, right? And so, as I chat with others about it, I really always come down to 3 things. When we look at our strengths, there are 2 sides to our strengths. There is the aspect of what our strengths need for us to be at our best, to be energized, to be in the sweet spot of something that has been woven into our DNA. And then the other aspect of our strengths is how we can offer our strengths to others, how we can connect what's best about us to the needs of others. So if we keep that in mind, when it comes to our needs, it's really important that we pad our schedules, our everyday stretch schedules. I get it. But that we pad them with some time and activities that will energize us, whatever that is for you. For me, that's reading. For others, it might be going for a walk or, a Zoom call with a friend.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. Whatever it is, but it is worth your while to slow down the tape a little bit for yourself to know what it is that gives you life, that refreshes you, because you can only pour out to someone else out of the overflow of your own bucket, so to speak. So that's the need. And then equally important is then for you to take the very things that are best about you and offer them to others. I know that Lindy is on here. She has that beautiful ability to come up with creative ideas and offer them to others. Well, right now, when so many of us feel stuck and boxed in, right? When we don't have much freedom, really. I'm sure that Lindy is offering her creative, strategic, beautiful ideation.
FaceTime happy hour.
There you go. There you go.
Yes.
So those are the two things: the needs and the brings of every strength that is kind of wired into us. The third aspect that I often highlight to the parents in particular is become a strength spotter. And what I mean by that is now is your opportunity to have those offline conversations with your kids about what energizes them, what fires them up. Because if you can play into their strengths, then you can release that tension that most likely is there, because I know I can easily
realize it either.
And I can even see it in my own home. I can step into these moments where I have certain expectations of my kids. Maybe I project my own strengths on them, but instead I'm challenging myself and others to ask open-ended questions, to be curious about our kids, our partners.
Because there's the kids version of strength too.
Yes.
Like a more general kind of
person. Yes. So I think if we can even start there with those three things, the needs, the brings, and then the being a strength spotter in our family or even our friends, so that we could play into other strengths, I think right there we can reduce that stress, reduce that anxiety, and feel a little more grounded.
Yes. And Tom had a question here. He says, how do the assessments adjust for people answering what they think they should say, their true answers?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, there are always a few individuals who will want to kind of outsmart the assessment. Based on data, we know that most valid answers are those answers that come from the first timers when they take the assessment first, the first time. If they take it again, oftentimes we see some shift in the order of their strengths, but typically the top 10 remain the same. Well, if someone wants to kind of play into what they want to see at the end, there's no way around it. I think you might be, if you're one of those people, you might be missing on an opportunity to have a tool in your pocket that authentically reflects who you are.
So if you want authentic answers, be authentic.
Be authentic. There's no way around it.
And I wanted to share real quickly, because the whole reason I kind of thought of strengths a few weeks ago was just, I was sharing with, people that I felt a little lost, right? I just been home for quite a while, and I'm used to going out and networking and seeing people. And so like, I was just kind of scrambling for something to inspire me. And when I picked this up and I read it, it just gave me hope. And so I encourage all of you that have taken it, and even if you haven't taken it, to do it or to just remind yourself of your gifts. But when you print this out, I still remember like my number one strength is connectedness. And literally the first sentence of how you can thrive, and it says, you have faith in the links among all things, and you believe there are few coincidences, and that almost every event has meaning. And when I read that, it gave me goosebumps, because, you know, here we are in the midst of this crazy pandemic event, and we can certainly look at all the challenges and the negative side, which are many, 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 many. But then I guess it reminded me to kind of dig deep and look for the positive side, and to find meaning. And if it means that we can reach out more to connect with people virtually, if we can give more, if we can share content online more to help each other, then maybe that's my meaning that I take from it.
Absolutely. And Fanny, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it immediately caught my attention how at the beginning of this LinkedIn Live, the first thing that you said is, put your information in the chat box. I want us all to connect, right? I want you all to connect. I think you said, I wrote it down, I want people to make connections so that you build your network. I mean, it just flows out of you so naturally, but you're doing what I'm asking all of us to do, which is connect what's best about you, your very unique perspective, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act, and connect it with the needs of others. And you're feeling it right now, the connection piece. And
so let's go on to the next question that I had for you. And that is, you know, in a way, we're all leaders, but there are leaders in the home, leaders of teams, leaders in corporations, organizations. And during these kind of unpredictable times, how can leaders be predictable and stable and strong during these challenging times, Joanna?
Yeah, really good question, Fanny. Yes, how can we be predictable in unpredictable times, right? And yes, I agree with you. We're all leaders. If we have one follower, we're a leader. Yeah. So Gallup has done a lot of studies around most effective leaders. And kind of the nugget is that most effective leaders know their strengths, invest in their strengths. They know the strengths of those around them. They're intentional about surrounding themselves with diverse strengths and diverse perspectives. No groupthink here. And then most effective leaders, they know how to meet the needs of their followers. And this is a really important point, Fanny, because it turns out that as followers, and we're both leaders and followers,
yes,
right? We know exactly what we want to see in our leaders for us to be fully engaged and productive. And it boils down to 4 needs of the followers. We want to see trust, compassion, stability, and hope. So as you and I and others, as we chat about how to find our way and be predictable in these unpredictable times, well, somehow in a way that's authentic to us, it behooves us to build trust with our people, to show compassion, provide stability, and offer hope. Now, what that will look like will depend on the strengths that are part of us, right? However, the key is to do it. So, you know, building trust, Fanny, you know that's all about walking the talk. It's all about doing what you said you would do, right? Now, how you will do it, it will look differently from you to me, but at the heart of it will be carrying through our commitments. Showing compassion is all about that heart. And there's so many studies that show that when an organization doesn't have the heart, the engagement of their employee it definitely declines. And, you know, compassion is all about really vulnerability. I was reminded as I was chatting with so many leaders yesterday, it seemed that one of the themes that I picked up on was there's such power in another person who's sitting across from us saying, wait, you too are feeling those feelings. You too are experiencing it. It's so simple, right?
We're not alone in what, right?
Yes. And then stability is all about being transparent. Transparent as in going as far as you can to talk about those difficult topics, because and answering those questions that maybe no one on your team is asking, but they're asking themselves about it.
Yes.
Right? Will my job exist tomorrow?
Yeah.
Will my salary be affected?
Yeah.
What's next for our company? They might not have the courage to ask them face to face, but they are asking them. And so as a leader, now is your time to step into those topics, even if that means that you might stumble over your words.
Yeah.
If you do it authentically, the misspoken words will be forgiven. Yeah. And then the hope is all about, boils down to really talking about the goals. And if you can't talk about the long range goals, and I get it, then talk about the goals for tomorrow.
The tunnel.
Yeah, talk about the goals about next week. And then connect those goals to the contribution of every person on your team, whether we're talking about the team at work or a team at home, right?
Absolutely.
Let your kids know that they're absolutely playing an important role in how the family will come out on the other side of this pandemic.
Absolutely. And for those of you in the audience, let us know, you know, trust, compassion, stability, and hope. You know, which one of those really inspire you and pull you through, and that you want to look for in your leaders and to inspire from yourself, right? Let us know your thoughts and your values. Because, you know, like Tom right there says, authenticity right now is so important.
So important.
Right.
And Fanny, I think that you make a really good point, which is out of those 4 needs, as leaders, we will naturally be drawn to some of them more than others, because they will, depending on our default setting of our strengths, you know, like I have a hunch that you might gravitate towards trust and compassion. Maybe it would be
later in me.
Whereas I might gravitate more towards hope, that, you know, I'm an influencer, someone who always wants to inspire others to aspire for more out of life. And so that's really good to know. That's a great starting point. At the same time, I think, especially in unpredictable times, we need to stretch ourselves and address the other needs as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of stretching ourselves, you know, one thing, you know, I advocate for, and my audience knows that I believe very strongly in, is creating content, right? And sharing of yourself, sharing of your expertise with others online. And I found that doing the Strengthsfinder assessment really helped me with content creation ideas as well, right? For me, you know, once you know your strengths, then those are the things that, like Joanna was saying, you know, connectedness is my #1 strength. So I'm always looking to connect people and provide forums like this for connection. And, you know, I really want a community to be built in the comments of this feed, but also, you know, like relator and includer. Like, I believe very strongly in relating to your audiences and providing everything we can to them. So for those of you out there, like I found a great example. I think Tara was in the comments just now, and she's a good friend. And you know, one of hers is that she's a learner and input. And for those of you that are out there that are that as well, right? Those are people that just love information and learning and collecting, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, Joanna. And everything that you've learned and collected, like, share it with the world, right? And any other ideas you have, Joanna, for leverage?
Well, absolutely. And I've even seen it in my own family, where certain members of our family have learned quite high, and I've noticed how they were able to be always ahead of the rest of the family in even learning the statistics and the data and the kind of the facts behind the COVID-19, and then they were able to digest it back to us, because maybe the rest of the family didn't want to be on the news all the time. What a tangible way, again, of connecting what's best about you with the needs of the others. You know, I think of all the parents who are now at home homeschooling.
Yeah.
If you have a learner or input in your in your dominant strengths, now is your opportunity to teach your kids how to learn. For some of us, that's, you know, if that's not one of our strengths, that won't be intuitive. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep thinking of the ways to.
I wanted to just pull up some folks' strengths, and maybe you could just share with them like what they
absolutely
can.
Yes.
For instance, I saw Laura Ascona. Her number one is strategy.
Oh, yes.
Somebody with strategy.
Yes.
Leverage right now.
Right. So strategy is a beautiful strategic thinking domain of leadership strength, and it's all about options. It's all about alternatives. You have the ability to fly at the 30,000-foot view. You're more of a chess than a checkers player. You're typically ahead of others by several moves, and and so it's you play an important role, most likely, especially at this time when there's so much confusion, so much chaos, and many people don't want to even see the big picture. You most likely, if you allow yourself, you can step in and say, hey, so I've given this some thought. Here's what I see that maybe you haven't considered. And that could just bring such a sense of calmness to others if you offer it in the right way.
Laura, you hear that? For those of you that are strategic, you know, hit that like button. We have Laura here. That's a learner. We just talked about that.
Yeah.
We have Geraldine, who's a relator.
Well, so this is, I'll give it a quick headline, and then I would love to hear from you, Fanny, about how you're offering your relator to others at this time. Relator is a beautiful relation building strength. It's we often refer to individuals with relator as the glue of any group. Leaders with relator have the ability to, they lead with authenticity and genuineness and transparency, and they look for it in others. And so there's a pretty good chance that if they don't find those qualities in others, they're not really interested in pursuing deep, meaningful relationships. And that is perfectly fine. That is their superpower. Tell me, Fanny, a little bit about your relator.
My relator, I think sometimes, you know, like I feel so deeply. When I listen to them or when I'm asking them questions, and I think that's why I love being a content coach, is that when I ask people questions, I just listen to them, not just what they're saying, but their body language and sometimes what they're not saying. And from there, I kind of extract their brand and their gifts and their strengths. And I think the relator side really helps me with that.
I'm sure. And imagine all those leaders out there who lead with relator right now. If you can be that safe place where others at home or at work can lend their thoughts, their confused feelings and emotions on you, not for you to take them on, but simply be that holding place. What a powerful contribution that you can offer to others.
Absolutely. Okay. And so, you know, do anyone else have questions for Joanna right now? Tara says she wants to hear about achiever.
Achiever, yes. That is a beautiful strength that falls into the executing domain of leadership. And so what's behind it is the motivation behind it is to get things done. Those with achiever, you know, they have stamina, they have drive, they have the energy. They're always mindful of the finish line. A great day for them is a day where they can look back and see all the things that they were able to achieve. And sometimes, you know, it might be a list of a mental list or an actual hard copy of a list where they can check off the things that they accomplished.
I'm laughing because it's so Tara.
That's so Tara. I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Just two more because I think people enjoy hearing.
Sure, sure.
Jennifer Beats said number one is input. What would you say?
Yeah, there are two aspects to, so input falls into what we call the strategic thinking domain of leadership. And there are really two aspects to it. One is that you love to collect, you're a collector, and what you collect, it depends on your personality, on the other strengths. Oftentimes it's information, but it could also be tangible things. For me, it is information or words in particular. I love words. So that's one aspect, collecting. The other aspect is offering whatever it is that you have, whatever your resources you have, to others. So there's always an agenda behind input. You collect something because in the back of your mind, there's most likely this notion of, you know what, at some point, someone will need what I have. So I need to hang on to it. Mm-hmm. It's a fantastic, you know, leaders with input are often looked upon as reliable, incredible sources of information. So during this pandemic, if you can unleash your input and bring it to your team at work or at home, once again, what a tangible way to help others.
Okay, and then last one, because I don't know too much about this one. Linda Self, her number one is individualization.
Oh, yes.
What is that?
Very long name. It's a beautiful strength that's all about being fascinated with each individual for who they are. So leaders with individualization are excellent at really spotting strengths in others. There's a book out there called The Noticer, and I think it's such an apt word to describe leaders with individualization. They'll often tell me they'll be in a public place somewhere and they'll just kind of be observing people, you know, at the airport, at Starbucks, what have you, and asking themselves, what is it that makes them tick? But what they're excellent at is putting teams together because they know where everyone should sit at the table, so to speak, and right. Fanny, one thing that has occurred to me, and individualization kind of prompted me to highlight this point. As fun as it is to talk about each one of these strengths in us individually as leaders, the power behind talking about strengths is that it's a language that should be spoken in the context of teams. Again, a team at home and team at work. So imagine, Fanny, if, you know, in my home, we all know our strengths. It would be very difficult for me to fully settle into my strengths if none of my family members even knew what I was talking about or knew their own strengths. It has absolutely changed the dynamics in our family. And that is why I do the work that I do with teams.
Team and dynamic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where the engagement, the productivity, and the contribution part comes into play.
Wow. Well, thank you, Joanna.
Thank you, Fanny.
Those of you that want to speak more with Joanna and, you know, learn more about what she does, this is her website right there. And obviously, definitely, you can find her on LinkedIn, Joanna Wiesinger. Joanna, I feel calmer just having this conversation.
We should all maybe kind of restart. Keep calm and carry on with strengths.
That's the title of our show today. Keep calm and carry on with strengths. And I couldn't think of better words to at least wrap up our interview. But in the meantime, Joanna,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your strengths and your expertise on strengths. And I think for me, if I can just speak for everyone, like I think it just helps to ground us, helps to remind us of our greatness and our gifts so that we can then give to others as well.
Well said. Thank you, Fanny.
Thank you, Joanna. What a wonderful session. And may we be all grounded and reminded of our strengths. And for those leaders out there, leading teams, leading folks at home, leading ourselves, leading organizations, may we remember trust, compassion, stability, and hope for everyone. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Bye.